a mysterious human warship appeared. The enemy fleet vanished within minutes. My name is Thyrak Velson. I have served the Zorath Dominion for 40 years. I have led 30 campaigns across the stars and conquered species far older than my own. I have never written a testimony like this before, because I have never experienced anything like what happened above the human colony world of Elysium 4. The Senate has asked me to record every detail, so I will, and when I am finished, I believe you will understand why I returned a different commander than the one who left. We arrived with 1,200 warships, 6 carrier-class dreadnoughts, 40,000 trained soldiers, the largest armada assembled in 3 centuries, and all of it aimed at a single farming colony with a population of 2 million humans and no military presence whatsoever. Command had classified the mission as a zero-resistance acquisition. I remember thinking it was beneath me. I remember settling into my command throne as the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, and I remember feeling nothing but quiet boredom. This was not war. This was an errand. Our sensors confirmed what intelligence had promised. No orbital defense grid, no warships. Just a handful of outdated patrol frigates scrambling toward the planet's surface, and a few cargo haulers drifting in low orbit. I gave the order to begin positioning for orbital control, and I expected the whole operation to be finished before my next sleep cycle. Humans were a young species. They had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. The Zorath Dominion had ruled this region of space for 9,000. The mathematics, I believed, were simple. I was wrong about everything. My sensor officer was the first to notice it. A gravitational distortion had appeared at the far edge of the system. It was not a signature we recognized. It was not a wormhole, or a hyperspace breach, or any form of faster-than-light travel in our records. Space itself was folding, bending inward like fabric being pinched by an invisible hand. I leaned forward in my chair and watched the readings with mild curiosity. I assumed it was a human courier ship attempting to send a distress signal. I ordered a squadron of destroyers to intercept. Then the distortion stabilized, and something came through. Every officer on my bridge went silent at the same moment. I have commanded thousands of soldiers in the most desperate situations imaginable, and I have never heard a silence like that. It was not fear. Not yet. It was something deeper. A sense of wrongness that crawled into my chest and sat there like a cold stone. The ship that emerged was black. Not painted black, it absorbed light. Its hull reflected nothing at all. Looking at it was like looking at a hole someone had cut in the fabric of the universe. My sensors could not get a stable reading. Its dimensions kept shifting, as though parts of the vessel existed somewhere else, somewhere our instruments could not reach. I initially estimated its length at 2 kilometers. Then the sensors recalibrated and the number climbed. 4 kilometers. 7. 11. The final reading settled at just over 11 kilometers long. It was larger than anything humanity had ever been known to build. It was larger than anything we had ever built, and it had no visible weapons. No engine glow, no energy signature of any kind. By every reading available to us, that ship was dead. Cold metal drifting in the void. And yet it was moving, slowly, deliberately, on a direct course toward my fleet. I hailed it. There was no response. I hailed it again. Static. On the 3rd attempt, something happened that I still cannot fully explain. A single line of text appeared on every screen in my fleet simultaneously. Not just the communication displays. Every screen. Navigation consoles. Engineering readouts. Personal tablets in crew quarters. All of them displayed the same message, written in perfect Zorath script, in our own language, with flawless grammar and formal military address. It read, "You have 5 minutes to withdraw. This is your only warning." I felt something cold move through me, but I buried it. I was Thyrak Velson. I had 1,200 warships and 40 years of victories behind my name. This was one vessel. One strange, unsettling, admittedly enormous vessel, but still just one. I ordered my fleet to target it. That is when I learned that this ship did not follow the rules of the universe as I understood them. My weapons officers reported that targeting systems could not achieve a lock. Every time they fixed the coordinates, the ship's position shifted. Not physically. The ship did not move. The mathematics simply refused to resolve. It was as though our own computers were being told, gently and firmly, no. My science officers ran a full sensor sweep and reported contradictions that made no sense. The ship appeared to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. Parts of it were here, parts of it were elsewhere. They could not determine its power source, its propulsion method, or what its hull was made of. I ordered a mass volley, 300 ships firing simultaneously. Plasma lances, kinetic impactors, antimatter torpedoes. Enough concentrated force to crack a small moon apart. I watched the barrage launch. I watched it cross the distance. And I watched every single shot pass harmlessly through the space the ship occupied and continue into empty space beyond. Not deflected, not absorbed. They simply passed through it, as though the ship was not entirely present in our reality. 3 minutes remained on the warning. My communications officer reported something new, and his voice was shaking when he said it. Across the fleet, crew members were hearing a sound, a low hum, deep and rhythmic. It was not coming through the speakers, it was coming through the hull itself. The metal of our ships was vibrating at a frequency just barely within Zorath hearing range. I pressed my hand against the armrest of my command throne and felt it. A slow, steady pulse. It sounded, and I say this with complete sincerity, like breathing. As though something impossibly large had wrapped itself around our entire fleet and was simply breathing. 2 minutes. One of my dreadnought captains broke formation. Captain Silene, commanding the Wrath of Ages, a ship with 6,000 crew members aboard. She attempted to flee. I watched her engines flare to maximum output. The ship strained forward with everything it had, and it did not move. It hung in space, engines burning at full power, going absolutely nowhere, as though the universe itself had decided that ship was staying right where it was. Then her transmission cut out. I ordered a visual on her vessel. It was still there. Hull intact. Lights on. Sensors showed 6,000 life signs aboard, every single crew member alive. But no one moved. No one responded. Just silence. I felt real fear for the first time in my career. The kind of fear that does not care about your rank, or your record, or your pride. The kind that grabs you by the spine and whispers that you are small, and you have made a terrible mistake. 1 minute I did nothing. I sat in my throne and watched the countdown reach 0, and then nothing happened. For 10 seconds, absolutely nothing happened. I almost laughed. I almost convinced myself it had been a bluff, a trick, a desperate gamble by a species that knew it was outmatched. Then the black ship opened. I do not have adequate words for what I saw. The hull did not split apart mechanically. It unfolded, like something organic, like a flower made of darkness blooming in the void, and inside there was light. But it was not light my eyes could understand. It had weight. It had pressure. It pushed against my skin even through the viewport. Several of my bridge officers collapsed. Others shielded their faces and turned away. A pulse radiated outward from the ship. It moved like a wave through water, expanding in all directions, and it passed through my fleet in an instant. Every system on my flagship died at the same moment. Weapons, shields, engines, life support, gravity, all of it gone. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing the bridge in dim red. In that glow, I saw my officers floating free of their stations, grasping at consoles, their faces twisted with panic. Then the pulse did something I will never forget for as long as I live. It did not destroy my fleet. Through the viewport, I watched my ships begin to fade, not shatter, not burn. They became translucent, like reflections on water, and then they were simply not there. Carriers, destroyers, frigates, cruisers, all of them vanishing in clusters. No debris, no flash of energy, no distress calls, just absence. Where a moment ago there had been 1,200 warships filling the space around me, there was now nothing but empty stars. It took 90 seconds. In 90 seconds, over 1,000 ships and tens of thousands of my people were gone. My flagship was the last one remaining. I drifted alone in the void, powerless, surrounded by nothing, facing the black ship. My crew was crying out in terror. Officers who had served with distinction for decades were calling upon gods that our species had not worshipped in 3,000 years. I could not blame them. I wanted to do the same. The black ship closed. It folded back into its featureless, lightless form. And a second message appeared on my emergency display, once again in perfect Zorath script. It read, "Your fleet has been relocated to your homeworld's orbit, unharmed. Every crew member is alive. Check your long-range communications." I stared at those words for a very long time. Then, with hands that would not stop shaking, I activated the emergency beacon. Hours later, confirmation arrived from Zorath High Command. 1,199 warships had appeared in stable orbit around our homeworld. Every crew member aboard every ship was alive, conscious, and uninjured. They remembered nothing after the pulse. They had been here, above Elysium 4, and then they had been home. 40,000 people moved across the galaxy in the space of a heartbeat. The ship had not destroyed my fleet. It had sent them home, like a parent picking up a child who had wandered somewhere they should not be, and carrying them back to bed. What happened next may be the part that haunts me most. A small shuttle launched from the colony below and docked with my powerless flagship. A single human came aboard. She was not wearing a uniform. She carried no weapons. She was a woman of average height, with dirt under her fingernails and sun-darkened skin, and she introduced herself as Dr. Lena Vasquez. She was a farmer. She grew vegetables on Elysium 4. She had brought water and rations for my crew, a farmer. They sent a farmer. I sat across from her in my darkened command center, surrounded by the remnants of my shattered pride, and I asked her what that ship was. She paused. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as sad, and she said, "We built that a long time ago. We hoped we would never have to use it. Most humans do not even know it exists." I asked her why they did not simply destroy us. She looked confused, genuinely confused, as though I had asked her why the stars were hot. She tilted her head and said, "Why would we? You are alive. That matters." A human military vessel arrived several hours later. A normal one. Small, blocky, and graceless. Exactly what we had always expected human ships to look like. They towed my flagship to a repair station. They fixed our systems. They refueled our engines. They gave every member of my crew a medical examination. They were polite. They were kind. They asked if we needed anything else before we left. Then they let us go. I flew home in silence. My crew did not speak. I did not speak. There was nothing to say. Now I stand before this Senate, and I have told you everything. You have asked me whether we can win a war against humanity. I will answer your question with a question of my own. They disabled 1,200 warships without firing a single weapon. They moved 40,000 of our people across the galaxy without harming a single one. They possess technology so far beyond our understanding that our greatest scientists cannot even explain what they witnessed on the sensor recordings. And when it was over, they did not send a general, or an admiral, or a politician. They sent a farmer with a jug of water and a bag of food, because that was all they thought the situation required. We spent 9,000 years building an empire. We conquered, we dominated, we ruled through strength and force, and the fear of those beneath us. And in 5 minutes, a single ship that most humans do not even know about made all of it meaningless. So I ask you, senators, I ask every one of you to consider this carefully before you cast your vote. What kind of species builds a god and then teaches it mercy? And what happens to us if we are foolish enough to make them stop being merciful? The Senate chamber was silent for a long time after I finished speaking. The vote was held the following morning. The war was never declared. And somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, a black ship without a name drifts quietly through the void, waiting to be needed again. I hope, for all our sakes, that it never is.